Hello class, in this video I'll be introducing rational functions and showing you how to find their domains. Let's begin. A function f that can be expressed in the form f of x is equal to g of x divided by h of x, where g and h are polynomials, is called a rational function. The domain of f of x consists of all real numbers for which h of x does not equal 0. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Find the domain of the rational function m of x is equal to 2x divided by x squared minus 9, and write the domain in interval notation. The domain of m of x is the set of all real numbers except those for which x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. If x squared minus 9 is equal to 0, then m of x is undefined. So now I'm going to solve this quadratic equation to find the values of x that make the denominator 0. So if x squared minus 9 is equal to 0, this implies that x minus 3 times x plus 3 is equal to 0. Solving the equation on the left, if x minus 3 is equal to 0, then x is equal to 3. If x plus 3 is equal to 0, then x is equal to negative 3. So negative 3 and 3 are not in the domain of m of x. If we write the domain in interval notation, it would look like this. So we have the domain is negative infinity to negative 3, and we place a parenthesis after the negative 3 because negative 3 is not part of the domain. Union negative 3 to 3. And again, we place a parenthesis after the 3 because, again, 3 is not part of the domain. Union with 3 to infinity. Example number 2. Find the domain of p of x is equal to x squared minus 3 divided by 3x squared plus 5x minus 2, and write the domain in interval notation. The domain of p of x is the set of all real numbers except those for which 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0. If 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0, then p of x is undefined. Now I'm going to solve this quadratic equation to determine which values of x are not in the domain of p. If 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0, this implies that 3x minus 1 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. Set each factor equal to 0. Solve the equation on the left, we have x is equal to 1/3. Solving the equation on the right, we have x is equal to negative 2. So x is equal to negative 2 and x is equal to 1/3 are not in the domain of p of x. Writing the domain in interval notation would look like this. We have negative infinity to negative 2, union with negative 2 to 1/3, union 2 to infinity. And finally, we have example 3. Find the domain of w of x is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 3, all divided by x plus 2, and write the domain in interval notation. The domain of w of x is the set of all real numbers except those for which x plus 2 is equal to 0. If x plus 2 is equal to 0, then w of x is undefined. So if x plus 2 is equal to 0, this implies that x is equal to negative 2 is not in the domain of w of x. So the domain in interval notation will be negative infinity to negative 2, union negative 2 to infinity. And we are done.